Journey back in time with History for Granite as we unveil the secrets etched in the ancient stones of Egypt. The Great Pyramid of Giza has captivated travelers and scholars alike for ages. Despite the ravages of time and scrutiny, a wealth of written accounts document its condition throughout the centuries. I find great pleasure in delving into the records of travelers who journeyed to Giza centuries ago. Their words allow us to experience the wonder and awe of someone beholding the pyramids firsthand, long before the advent of photography. Delving into the Great Pyramid, one is naturally drawn to the tangible, surviving physical evidence, the most captivating starting point. After all, concrete proof outweighs the accounts of strangers. However, the Pyramid of Cheops has endured such relentless alterations over millennia that drawing inaccurate conclusions becomes a real risk. To properly interpret the remaining evidence, one must grasp the tumultuous history of the Giza Plateau. This is where the task grows challenging, demanding a deep dive into a long list of past research expeditions, many with sources that are notoriously difficult to access. Delving into the mysteries of the Great Pyramid demands a comprehensive exploration of historical records. While some authors like Mark Lenner and Zahi Hawass in Giza and the Pyramids, The Complete History, include lists of past missions, their utility can be questioned. Often, the information provided is so scant that it offers little assistance to researchers seeking original sources. This practice can appear more as a display of scholarly prowess than a genuine aid to further investigation. However, a serious study of the Great Pyramid necessitates a thorough review of reports from previous years. It seems that the biggest challenge separating casual enthusiasts from those poised to make groundbreaking discoveries lies in uncovering overlooked historical accounts. I was thrilled when Matt from Ancient Architects highlighted some intriguing early 19th century sources. Independent researcher Stefan Bergdahl unearthed two distinct reports detailing visits to the Great Pyramid in March and April of 1837. Remarkably, both a clergyman named Wiesen and Prince Hermann von Puckler-Muskau independently documented their experiences inside the Great Pyramid during Howard Vyse's excavations in the Queen's Chamber in the spring of 1837. The most startling revelation, both the prince and the clergyman claimed to have witnessed a sarcophagus within the chamber. Having devoured countless erroneous historical accounts of the Great Pyramid, I remain ever vigilant, ready to dismiss narratives that stray too far from established truths. Unlike the welcoming experience of today, visiting the Great Pyramid in centuries past was a truly inhospitable affair. Dampness, dust, and a maze of obstacles filled its interior, accompanied by the unsettling presence of bats and snakes. Illumination relied solely on the flickering flames visitors carried, leaving them unable to explore the pyramid's intricate details with the ease we enjoy now. The exploration of the Great Pyramid was fraught with peril, with a fall from the steep Grand Gallery potentially leading to severe injury or even death. But what truly sent shivers down my spine was when Matt from Ancient Architects revealed two strikingly different accounts of the sarcophagus in the Queen's Chamber. These reports were penned just weeks apart in 1837, during Howard Vyse's work inside the pyramid. Now, I must say, unlike some historians, I don't hold a negative view of Vyse. His meticulous documentation of the Giza Plateau was groundbreaking, preceding Flinders Petrie, often hailed as the father of Egyptology, by 44 years. Regardless of one's opinion on Howard Vyse's methods, he undeniably established a modern standard for documenting excavations. Over the centuries since, countless excavations have been conducted, perhaps employing gentler techniques, yet their documentation remains scant or, worse, unpublished. For example, the chambers of Djedefre's pyramid are destined to remain enigmatic, as the modern expedition never released its findings, and now nearly all evidence is lost. Even Howard Vyse, despite his flaws, stumbled upon mysteries that continue to baffle. The secrets held within the Giza pyramids yield unexpected discoveries, even with meticulous investigation. One such enduring enigma is the existence of a sarcophagus within the Queen's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. In the early days of pyramid exploration, when techniques were still crude, the results were often unfortunate. The Great Pyramid bore a gaping hole on its southern face, and the burial chamber of Khafre suffered damage. Perhaps the saddest fate befell the sarcophagus of Menkaure, lost to the depths of the sea. Examining the records of those early explorers, one finds it difficult to condemn them outright. They were individuals managing vast projects with hundreds of workers, striving to achieve their goals under challenging circumstances. One particular researcher even suggested that a man named Vyse might have concealed a sarcophagus within the Queen's chamber. Two eyewitnesses from the same era both claimed to have seen the sarcophagus. To understand this, we need to examine all available evidence. Many researchers believe the Queen's chamber was indeed intended for burial, and finding a sarcophagus would support this. One historical reference comes from the 13th century when Al-Idrisi mentioned it. However, given the long gap between his account and later, detailed reports of the Queen's chamber, the sarcophagus's disappearance could be due to damage inflicted by visitors over the centuries. The sarcophagus may have been pulled from a tunnel carved into the Queen's chamber niche. It seems unlikely it would have been left inside the chamber, as many visitors before Vyse had not seen it. It's also improbable Vyse buried it beneath the floor in a pit he dug, since he didn't tunnel into the center of the niche. This brings Giovanni Caviglia into focus, who excavated the Great Pyramid 2 decades before Vyse arrived. Caviglia was a true treasure hunter, obsessed with ancient Egyptian monuments. He was a man consumed by his passions, unearthing secrets buried beneath the sands and chasing down the funding that made it all possible. His dedication bordered on obsession, pushing his body to its absolute limits. He'd often spend his nights nestled amongst the ancient dead in empty tombs, a grim practice that ultimately led to his demise from illness. Unlike Vyse, he wasn't driven by a need to meticulously record and publish his findings. When Vyse first arrived in Egypt in 1837, he was immediately captivated by Caviglia's fervor, so much so that he brought him on board his own expedition. However, their partnership proved short-lived. Vyse soon dismissed Caviglia, citing his failure to complete assigned tasks and his persistent habit of rooting among mummy pits. The enigma of the missing sarcophagus lingered. A theory emerged suggesting that Caviglia might have extracted the artifact from the Queen's chamber tunnel before Vyse's arrival. This would account for its eventual discovery, but its subsequent disappearance remained a mystery. Caviglia collaborated with individuals keen on publicizing his findings, including Henry Salt, the British consul in Egypt. Thanks to Salt, records of Caviglia's work within the Great Pyramid in 1817 were preserved. The 19th volume of Egyptian Antiquities detailed Caviglia's excavations. However, Henry Salt explicitly described how Caviglia cleared the tunnel within the Queen's chamber niche and found nothing but graffiti bearing the names of 2 Europeans. Caviglia's clearing of debris within the Queen's chamber ruled out the possibility of the sarcophagus being there. One logical explanation vanished. The idea of pulling it from beneath the floor felt unlikely, and the thought of Vyse secretly discarding it seemed absurd. A plain limestone sarcophagus held little value then, even from the Great Pyramid's Queen's chamber. The Giza plateau was littered with simple sarcophagi. Without context, it was just another stone box. Vyse, even within the Great Pyramid's depths, wouldn't deign to pilfer an unadorned limestone box. Only after days of meticulous source analysis and cross-referencing did the scholar turn to the first-hand accounts of Vicino and Pückler Muskau. It was Vicino's own words that finally painted a clear picture. To an uninitiated visitor of the Great Pyramid in 1837, the square-cut stonework nestled in the Queen's chamber's niche could easily be mistaken for a sarcophagus. Imagine being told of both a king's chamber and a queen's chamber. In the king's chamber, a sarcophagus sits, an excavated hole yawning beside it. You find yourself in the queen's chamber, a space that whispers of royal internment, yet holds no grand sarcophagus or gilded treasures. Instead, your gaze is drawn to a peculiar niche, a rectangular recess carved into the wall. Below it, the rough scar of an excavation, a mark left by Howard Vyse's men, hints at a story untold. One might be forgiven for mistaking the niche for an oddly shaped sarcophagus. But it was only through Vicino's detailed account I managed to make that connection. It's a task of no small difficulty, sifting through the words penned long ago to pinpoint with certainty where an author has strayed from the truth in their observations. He spoke of a sarcophagus nestled within a smaller niche, crafted from unadorned marble and lying open. Excavations lay beneath it, a tunnel arched above. This description aligns perfectly with the rectangular recess we observe today. I would even venture to say that a tap upon the walls of this recess might reveal the echo of a lengthy connecting tunnel. This could very well explain Vicino's description of the sound as hollow. And for those who doubt the possibility of such misinterpretations, the Great Pyramid itself offers numerous similar instances. Flinders Petrie, a leading expert of his era, initially dismissed the granite slab in the chamber of the lattice as a repurposed grid plate. A closer inspection reveals it's crafted from two distinct blocks, insecurely positioned and prone to damaging the granite beneath if lowered. However, in the dim light of the 19th century and earlier, a thorough examination of every detail within the pyramid was simply unfeasible. To err is human. Another 19th century researcher, Charles Piazzi Smith, made an error that has long puzzled me. Having penned numerous volumes on the Great Pyramid, his writings serve as invaluable resources. Piazzi Smith repeatedly referred to the granite plugs within the ascending passage as a portcullis. While crafting my video concerning the granite fragments, remnants of a shattered barrier cast aside beneath the plugs, Smith's diction proved immensely confusing. However, upon recognizing the link to the sarcophagus in the Queen's chamber, I grasped how other researchers might have stumbled into the same error. Although Al-Idrisi, in the 13th century, noted the resemblance between the sarcophagi in the King's and Queen's chambers, this observation alone is insufficient to refute Vicino's misinterpretation. Resemblance can be a deceptive thing, encompassing everything from mere rectangular shapes to dimensions large enough to house a human form. In all likelihood, the truth was a case of mistaken identity. Reaching this conclusion brought a bittersweet mix of excitement and disappointment. While the new puzzle had been solved, it also dashed hopes of discovering a sarcophagus within the Queen's chamber. Unless fresh evidence surfaces, rich enough in detail to eliminate any confusion between a sarcophagus and a niche, I will stand by this interpretation. They are one and the same. Honestly, following the evidence can sometimes lead to disheartening conclusions. Yet the Great Pyramid continues to hold many mysteries, perhaps none more intriguing than the smooth rectangular section of masonry within the Queen's chamber that stretches for several meters. This is not typical construction, so it's no surprise that this anomaly has captivated researchers for ages. Architect and explorer Gilles Dormion became so fascinated with the rectangular niche that he proposed the existence of hidden tunnels or chambers beneath it. This very idea forms the central premise of his book, La Chambre de Khéops. Dormion's books, rich with unique insights and analyses, sometimes stretch credulity. While his trio of pyramid books hints at undiscovered pharaoh tombs, skepticism prevails. Unexplained anomalies don't guarantee sensational discoveries. Father Fazzini believed Vyse's pit in the Queen's chamber floor to be a separate room, envisioning a niche-like structure. Yet early excavations, plunging 55 feet into the niche, revealed that the brickwork did not necessarily indicate a hidden chamber. Within his records, Vyse noted the curious presence of sand discovered during excavations near the Queen's chamber and beneath a niche. This echoes the 1986 expedition led by Gilles Dormion within the corridor leading to the Queen's chamber. 3 core samples, angled downwards, were extracted from the wall, and the deepest of these contained sand distinct from the local Giza sand. The uncovering of sand in 3 separate excavations near the Queen's chamber hints at a distinct pattern. A compelling question arises. Would resuming Vyse's excavations within the Queen's chamber floor reveal the same anomalous sand found in the horizontal corridor? Ancient architects believed it wouldn't harm the pyramid itself. While it's unlikely the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities would greenlight such a project, a scientific investigation might pique their interest more than a hunt for a tomb. I have my own theory regarding the Queen's chamber, explaining the sand, voids, and other anomalies. A theory I'm saving for the right moment. Consider the photographs of the Queen's chamber taken over a century ago. In one of the most famous, captured by the Edgar brothers for their 1910 book, the niche appears oddly shaped. The passage appeared completely choked with debris, a perplexing sight considering the tunnel's depth of 55 feet. A new interpretation suggests the obstruction resulted from Howard Vyse's actions after his work in the Queen's chamber. As a Victorian English gentleman, Vyse, upon completing and backfilling his excavations, ordered the floor to be cleared. The resulting rubble was then piled at the niche's entrance, with larger blocks left scattered on the floor. The real issue isn't that the tunnel is entirely blocked, but that its entrance is buried, seemingly used as a convenient dumping ground for rubble and sand. A series of 3 photographs, all taken from the same vantage point, illustrates the niche's transformation over time. The first captured by Charles Piazzi Smith in 1865, followed by the Edgars brothers in 1910, and another sometime in the early 20th century. Minimal signs of disturbance suggest the niche's tunnel remained untouched throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Investigation would have been relatively straightforward, requiring only the removal of some debris, yet it lay undisturbed for years. Imagine the Great Pyramid, bearing witness to countless eras, each leaving its unique mark upon it. There were eras of near absolute stillness within, silent and forgotten. Suddenly, bursts of intense interest ignited, fueling large-scale expeditions filled with both hope and eventual disappointment. For many years, the interior of the pyramid remained an uninviting realm, demanding considerable courage and determination for thorough exploration. Fortunately, pioneers like Vyse, Perring, and Petrie dedicated themselves to substantial work, allowing us to assemble a rather complete understanding of the evidence that may have been discovered inside the pyramid over the last 200 years. And believe me, many mysteries still lurk within, awaiting their moment of revelation. But it is wise not to rush headlong into the search for the elusive burial chamber of Khufu, lest you share the fate of those who met with frustration on this path.